Russia just crossed a line. On September 10th, Polish air defenses lit up the sky as Russian drones breached its sovereign airspace. By violating Poland, Moscow didn't just provoke a neighbor, it stirred NATO awake.
Another important U.S. ally saying it has shot down Russian drones.
Poland is calling it an act of aggression that has pushed the country closer to the verge of war.
Europe is on edge tonight after Russian drones violated Poland's airspace.
Germany's defense minister said that the drones were armed and deliberately set on course into Poland, an accusation which the Kremlin denied.
The war that started in Donbass has now spilled towards Warsaw. What was once a distant conflict is now pressing against NATO's front door. This sudden twist that still has the world shaken could be the start of something deadly. And as wreckage of Moscow's drones lands on Polish soil, one question still hangs in the air. Is Russia about to go to war with Poland and with NATO itself? Let's start by breaking down exactly what happened on the morning of September 10th. It all started as Russia launched one of its heaviest waves of missiles and drones against western Ukraine. However, not everything stayed on the Ukrainian side of the border. Shockingly, several armed drones slipped into Polish airspace, making them a threat to Polish citizens and infrastructure. Warsaw's response was immediate. Air defenses tracked, locked, and destroyed all of these hostile drones before they could cause harm. Within hours, the Polish government called it what it was, an act of aggression by the Kremlin. After all, invading another country's airspace with armed military equipment is a big no-no. Following the incident, several actions were taken. Airports in the east were shut down, flights were grounded, and residents were told to stay inside until the skies were clear. NATO was even alerted, and Polish officials shared the details of this incident with their allies. For ordinary Poles, the message was chilling. The war had just crossed into their country. That moment has marked a turning point. Up until now, Poland has been a critical ally of Ukraine, a transit hub for weapons and one of Moscow's fiercest critics. But it had not yet engaged Russian hardware directly. By firing on those drones, Warsaw crossed a threshold. It showed that Poland will not allow its territory to be treated like a testing ground. It also carries weight inside of NATO, because every violation of Poland's airspace is, by definition, a violation of NATO airspace. The fact that Warsaw was the one to act swiftly instead of waiting for allies to deliberate showed Poland's willingness to defend its own skies on its own terms. What's also worth noting is that this drone incident did not come out of nowhere. It's part of a pattern that has been building up for months. Just a few days ago, on September 4th, 2 drones briefly entered Polish skies before leaving. In April, a Russian helicopter also violated Polish airspace in what was suspected to be a test of their air defenses. Months before that, a fighter jet crossed the line, encroaching on Polish land once again. Each time, Moscow denied responsibility or claimed it was an accident. But Poland never saw these as slips. To Warsaw, these have always been warnings of a bigger threat to come. The pattern goes back even further. On November 22nd, a Russian-made missile struck the Polish village of Przodów, killing 2 people. The world held its breath because a NATO member had just been hit in the middle of a war. Investigators later suggested it was a Ukrainian air defense missile gone astray while trying to intercept a Russian strike. But the lesson was clear. Poland was on the front line whether it wanted to be or not. And since that day, every radar alert and every unidentified aircraft has reminded Poles how thin the line really is between Ukraine's battlefield and their own towns. What ties these incidents together is a clear strategy from Moscow. Russia is testing NATO's resolve with what many call gray zone actions. These are just calculated provocations. The violations are small enough to deny, small enough not to trigger an automatic military response, but deliberate enough to keep Poland and its allies on edge. Each drone that crosses the border, each aircraft that dips into Polish skies, is part of a game meant to wear down nerves and create doubt. Poland is forced to stay on high alert every day, which is exactly what the Kremlin wants. It's psychological warfare, keeping the public anxious and the military constantly ready. But this recent attack broke that cycle. By shooting down the drones and calling the incident aggression, Poland changed the rules of the game. It made clear that the so-called accidents would no longer be tolerated. Every intrusion would be met with force. That shift matters because it shows a NATO frontline state no longer willing to play by Moscow's script. For many across Europe, that incident was when the shadow of the war in Ukraine finally stretched across NATO territory. And if these attacks haven't been enough, some chaotic things are happening near Poland's borders. Warsaw is watching a familiar and dangerous playbook unfold right on its doorstep. as Russia and Belarus begin training sessions near Poland's eastern border. The Zapad 2025 drills, running from September 12th to 16th, aren't the kind of routine training that Russia and Belarus like to claim they are. They are a direct message. Thousands of troops, tanks, aircraft, artillery, and missile systems have been moved to Poland's eastern border under the banner of joint operations. Moscow officially insists only 13,000 soldiers are involved, but NATO intelligence puts the figure closer to 20,000 when support and logistics units are added. And the troubling part isn't simply the number of boots on the ground, but what these soldiers are actually training for. This year's exercises feature hypersonic weapons like Orishnik, missiles that can travel 10 times faster than sound and are designed to overwhelm modern defenses. They include scenarios that simulate tactical nuclear strikes, armored breakthroughs, and lightning assaults across borders. None of this looks like a defensive posture. These are the building blocks of invasion drills. Russia isn't fooling anyone. After all, Poland has lived through this theater before. In early 2022, Russia staged similar border exercises near Ukraine, insisting it was about readiness and routine coordination. Weeks later, those same units rolled across the border and launched a full-scale war. That memory is still sharp in Warsaw. This is why the Polish government refuses to take Zapad 2025 at face value. They aren't treating it as training. They're treating it as rehearsal for something worse. Prime Minister Donald Tusk has already ordered the Belarus border closed for the duration of the exercises, allowing only essential crossings. Polish forces have been placed on high alert. Fighter jets are patrolling the skies, and reconnaissance units are closely tracking every moment on the other side. NATO observers are present, but Poland isn't outsourcing its security. The government knows drills like these can be used as a smokescreen for real operations, and they refuse to be caught off guard. That concern becomes even more urgent when you package it with the recent drone infringement on Poland's territory. And this is where the Kremlin's gamble starts to backfire. Russia may be trying to intimidate Poland, but Warsaw is not Ukraine. Crossing into Poland means crossing into NATO territory. And that triggers Article 5, the clause that says an attack on one is an attack on all. This is not a hollow promise. It means US carriers in the Baltic, British submarines surfacing with nuclear-capable missiles, French jets in the air, and hundreds of thousands of European and American soldiers reinforcing the line. For every drone Russia sends over the border, NATO sends more men, more jets, and more armor to the region. For every drill Russia stages, NATO counters with bigger, more advanced exercises. This isn't a contest that Russia is well positioned to win. When it's all said and done, Poland's response isn't just about Russian aggression, it's about a bigger vision for security and leadership in Europe. And this is fueled by the fact that the modern history of Poland is filled with wars and catastrophes.
The destruction of a nation. Poland divided between the Nazi Germans and the Soviets. Siege of the doomed capital of Poland.